June 7th, 1992, Springfield, Missouri. At 1717 East Delmar Street, a small Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon was trapped inside a house, agitated and barking at the front door. The door was completely unlocked. On the front porch, the glass globe of the exterior light fixture was shattered, scattering jagged shards across the concrete step. Yet the light bulb itself remained perfectly intact. Inside the house, 3 women were missing. 47-year-old Sherrill Levitt, her 19-year-old daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's 18-year-old friend Stacy McCall had vanished. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no forced entry. Lined up neatly inside the living room were all 3 of their purses. Inside those purses were their driver's licenses, their cash, and their car keys. Parked in the driveway and along the curb were their 3 vehicles. Cheryl's cigarettes and lighter were left resting on the console. Stacy's essential migraine medication was still in her bag. People do not simply walk away from their lives without their money, their keys, and their shoes. Yet in the span of a few dark hours, 3 adult women had evaporated into the humid Missouri air, leaving behind a pristine, untouched domestic scene. To understand the absolute impossibility of this scene, we must reverse the timeline by exactly 10 hours. The evening of June 6th was a milestone. Suzie Streeter and Stacy McCall had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. The air was thick with celebration. Throughout the evening, the 2 teenagers, along with a larger group of friends, traveled between various graduation parties across the city. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Stacy called her mother, Janice McCall. She informed her that they were planning to spend the night at a hotel in Branson, Missouri, but eventually decided to stay at another friend's house in nearby Battlefield. By 2 a.m. on June 7th, the girls decided the Battlefield house was too crowded. They made a final change of plans. They would drive back to Springfield and sleep at Suzie's house on East Delmar Street. They departed in their separate vehicles. They were last seen at approximately 2:15 a.m. Inside the house on Delmar Street, Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, a successful local hairdresser, was winding down. She had spent the evening stripping and painting a refurbished dresser. She called a friend at 11:15 p.m., noting she was tired and heading to bed. Her bed was later found turned down, showing clear signs she had slept in it. Her book and glasses were on the nightstand. When Suzie and Stacy arrived shortly after 2:15 a.m., they prepared for sleep. Suzie's waterbed showed signs of having been slept in. Stacy's clothing, the floral shorts and t-shirt she wore to the graduation parties, was found neatly folded on the floor alongside her jewelry and shoes. The timeline dictates that all 3 women were inside the house ready for bed sometime between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. What happened next remains one of the most baffling anomalies in American criminal history. By 8 a.m. on June 7th, the sun was up. Janelle Kirby, a close friend of Suzie and Stacy, had arranged to spend the day with them at a local water park. When the girls failed to answer their home phone, Janelle and her boyfriend drove to 1717 East Delmar Street, arriving at approximately 9 a.m. They immediately noticed the 3 cars parked outside. As they approached the front door, they saw the shattered glass globe on the porch. To avoid stepping on the shards, Janelle's boyfriend used a broom from the house to sweep the broken glass off the porch. In doing so, he unknowingly destroyed what was likely the only physical forensic evidence left by the perpetrators. Janelle opened the unlocked front door. The house was quiet, save for the anxious barking of the family dog. The television was on, displaying static. The women were nowhere to be found. Assuming they had gone for a morning walk, Janelle and her boyfriend waited. During this time, the phone rang. Janelle answered it. The caller made strange, explicit sexual innuendos. Janelle hung up, assuming it was a crude prank. A short time later, the phone rang again. Janelle picked it up, heard similar voices, and immediately slammed the receiver down. By 10:30 a.m., Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, arrived at the house. Panic began to set in. She recognized Stacy's purse. She recognized Stacy's folded clothes. Janice knew her daughter would never leave without her migraine medication. As friends and family gathered at the house, a fatal chain of well-intentioned errors occurred. They walked through every room. They touched the purses. They sat on the furniture. They used the bathrooms. Between 9 a.m. and the time the police were finally called, a minimum of 10 to 18 different people walked through 1717 East Delmar Street. The crime scene was completely, irreparably contaminated. But the most devastating loss of evidence occurred at the answering machine. While waiting for the police, someone in the house noticed the answering machine was blinking, indicating a new message. They pressed play. The message contained a strange, highly unsettling voice. In a moment of panic and confusion, the button was pressed again. The message was permanently deleted. The tape was wiped clean. A potential piece of critical audio evidence was erased from existence before law enforcement even knew a crime had taken place. When the Springfield Police Department finally assumed control of the scene, they found nothing. There were no fingerprints matching known offenders. There was no foreign DNA. There were no drag marks on the carpet, no blood in the sinks, and no signs of a struggle. It was as if a vacuum had simply sucked the three women out of the house. The logistics of this abduction are staggering. Subduing three adult women simultaneously in a densely populated suburban neighborhood in the dead of night without a single neighbor hearing a scream, a gunshot, or a struggle requires a level of calculated precision and immediate compliance that borders on the impossible. Law enforcement theorists concluded that the perpetrator, or perpetrators, must have used a lethal threat, likely a firearm, to force all three women out of the house immediately upon entry. The broken porch light suggests the attacker unscrewed the bulb to shroud the entrance in darkness, shattering the glass globe in the process. The investigation quickly zeroed in on a specific vehicle. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a dark green Dodge van cruising the neighborhood in the days leading up to the disappearance. On the morning of June 7th, another witness reported seeing a similar green van. The witness stated a young woman closely matching Suzie Streeter's description was driving the vehicle while a male passenger spoke to her aggressively. The witness noted the young woman looked visibly distressed. Despite thousands of tips, national television coverage, and massive FBI involvement, the green van was never conclusively tracked down. As the years dragged on, the suspect pool narrowed to a few terrifying shadows. The most prominent among them was Robert Craig Cox. Cox was a convicted kidnapper and a former Army Ranger with a highly specialized skill set. In 1992, at the time of the disappearance, Cox was living in Springfield and working for a local underground utility company. His job involved laying cables and digging deep trenches across the city. Cox was interviewed by investigators. His alibi for the night of June 6th was fragile, provided by a girlfriend who later admitted she had lied to protect him. In subsequent years, while incarcerated for other violent crimes, Cox taunted authorities. He stated on the record that he knew the three women were dead and that they were buried in a location where they would never be found. He coldly claimed he would reveal the location only after his mother passed away. To this day, he has refused to provide a single actionable detail. In the absence of a confession, a chilling theory began to circulate through the city of Springfield. A theory rooted in a geographical anomaly. In the summer of 1992, just a few miles from the Delmar Street home, Cox South Hospital was constructing a massive new parking garage. In the critical days immediately following the disappearance, concrete was actively being poured for the foundation of this structure. The timing aligned perfectly. A construction site provides deep trenches, heavy machinery, and a permanent impenetrable seal. Years later, an independent mechanical engineer utilized ground-penetrating radar to scan a specific section of the hospital's parking garage floor. The radar detected three distinct separate anomalies buried exactly beneath the surface of the concrete. The anomalies were consistent with the dimensions of three human bodies. Despite public outcry and the agonizing pleas of the victims' families, the Springfield Police Department refused to core drill the concrete. They cited the prohibitive cost, the potential damage to the structural integrity of the hospital garage, and a secondary expert's opinion that the radar anomalies could simply be rebar or natural settling of the earth. The concrete remains unbroken. Over 3 decades have passed since the sun rose over 1717 East Delmar Street. The purses remain unclaimed. The deleted answering machine tape is lost to history. The front porch light has long been replaced. Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall simply ceased to exist in the physical world. Their disappearance stands not just as a tragedy, but as a terrifying reminder of the fragility of safety. It proves that despite locked doors, quiet neighborhoods, and the presence of loved ones, you can still be swallowed by the darkness. And sometimes, the darkness never gives you back. May God's justice ultimately prevail. Amen.